Tonight on Currents News, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio wants to hit the ground running once churches get the okay to open.
We want to be ready to go as soon as we get the clearance.
Crushing job losses leaving New Yorkers with nothing to eat. We follow one family with plans to say goodbye to the city of dreams. More states are reopening, but that decision could be deadly. New projections tonight, plus this.
Going from being in front of a classroom to behind a computer screen. I'm Jessica Easthope, and today we're celebrating one teacher who's going above and beyond to help her students with special needs.
And the Knights of Columbus, everyday heroes during the pandemic. A look into what else the Catholics have planned in the Diocese of Brooklyn. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. It's been months since Catholics have been able to set foot in their churches, given no choice but to watch daily masses on live streams. But Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is leading a top-level team to work toward the day when Catholics can finally gather in the pews again. He wants the Brooklyn Diocese to be ready to go. Currents News' Emily Drooby has the story.
Churches across the Diocese of Brooklyn have been closed since March 20th because of the pandemic, but soon New York could begin to slowly reopen, and Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is preparing.
We want to be ready to go as soon as we get the clearance. It's not going to be exactly the way it was when we stopped because of the need for social distancing.
The bishop has created a committee to figure out the logistics for when officials say it's safe to go back into churches, and he's tapped Joseph Esposito to chair it.
To get a head start and laying some ground rules on how we're going to do this.
We spoke with Esposito, who's also the former commissioner of the city's Office of Emergency Management.
So you go one sitting here.
While at St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, he walked us through some of the logistics they'll be figuring out. Like how many people can fit at one time. There's many questions that need to be answered. How to avoid overcrowding, will masks and taking temperatures be required, what events will be allowed first, and how they're going to deal with communion.
Do we let the priest give out the host? Do we let the parishioners pick up the host? Do we bring it back at all?
They plan to have retired police officers and people from the medical field on the committee. It's by no means an easy task. Queens and Brooklyn are the two boroughs most affected by this deadly virus.
It's hitting us hard. We have some parishes where I know one parish is 75 to 85 parishioners. This was last week's count that have died.
But both Bishop DiMarzio and Esposito have confidence the committee will be able to come up with a good and safe plan.
I think we'll be ready for when the governor and the elected officials say it's good to go and open up.
Bishop DiMarzio even says he feels a sense of hope and relief from the discussions he's been a part of so far. In Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Net TV, New York's Catholic station, is providing live-streamed masses in 7 languages every day while the public celebration in church is suspended. You can find the full schedule at netny.tv. A Catholic family in Bensonhurst is running out of food for their table. Mom and dad are out of work and out of money. They were hoping to find new jobs out of town, but for now that's on hold too. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story.
Unemployment in the United States is the highest it's been since the Great Depression. Tens of millions of people have lost their jobs. In New York City, those who are undocumented can't collect unemployment benefits and are fighting to survive.
The owners want their money now. They don't wait. Sometimes she worries about food. Sometimes the food runs out and she doesn't know what to give us.
Viridiana Sanchez and her husband have been unemployed for months. They're struggling to pay rent and provide for their 3 children. The family, who attends the Basilica of Regina Pacis in Bensonhurst, doesn't know where to turn. Through her 17-year-old daughter, Marlene, Viridiana described her desperation.
We were planning to move in 2 weeks to Minnesota, but something happened and we need to have a certain amount of money to go there, so we decided to go on September. And we wanted to move to Minnesota because the jobs here, they weren't giving out jobs. And over there, they were still giving jobs.
More than 1 million New Yorkers have filed for unemployment since the pandemic began. Though many qualify, the Department of Labor has been flooded with applications, and some have even had their claims denied. That's where the New York State Bar Association steps in.
So in these dark and desperate times, the New York State Bar Association is fulfilling one of the highest obligations of the legal profession, which is to provide legal assistance for those people who cannot afford an attorney.
Hank Greenberg, the president of the New York State Bar Association, says someone whose claim has been denied has a better chance of it getting appealed if they're represented by an attorney. He says the more than 1,500 lawyers who have completed online training to help people for free are offering much more than legal advice.
For many people who are suffering, the opportunity to speak to a thoughtful and sensitive person willing to listen to their concerns and help them through a difficult and vitally important legal issue is a very, very valuable thing.
People like Viridiana and her family have been finding that comfort in the Catholic-run food pantries and soup kitchens in their community and in their faith.
Her faith has been growing stronger, and our family is united in prayer. Because we didn't pray to get a family, so now we've been praying every single day.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
You can go to nysba.org to get more information about the Bar Association's unemployment help and to sign up for free assistance. We'll repeat the website, nysba.org, later in this newscast. Hopeful news about overcoming the pandemic. Human trials are already underway on a potential coronavirus vaccine. Pfizer is running the tests on healthy volunteers on an accelerated timetable. If successful, the drug maker is saying a vaccine could be ready for emergency use in the U.S. as early as September. The study is being conducted at NYU's Grossman School of Medicine. There are worries tonight that as more states ease up on stay-at-home restrictions, virus infections and deaths are going to increase. By Sunday, all but 8 states will have relaxed some rules. Karen Kafa has the story from Washington.
In the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, President Trump has one clear goal.
We're going to build the greatest economy in the world again, and it's going to happen pretty fast.
From parks and beaches to retail shops and restaurants, by this Sunday, at least 42 states will have relaxed some coronavirus restrictions.
We're opening up our country again.
Yet health experts have a dire warning. According to one prediction, the country's coronavirus death toll could nearly double if states reopen too soon.
How many deaths and how much suffering are you willing to accept to get back to what you want to be some form of normality sooner rather than later?
A poll from Monmouth University released Tuesday finds nearly 2/3 of Americans are concerned states are lifting regulations too quickly.
And the fundamental question, which we're not articulating, is how much is a human life worth?
President Trump remains confident mitigation efforts will slow the spread of the virus.
They're going to be social distancing, and they're going to be washing their hands, and they're going to be doing the things that you're supposed to do.
Still, governors across the country struggle to find the balance between economic strife and human life.
The faster we reopen, the lower the economic cost, but the higher the human cost, because the more lives lost. That, my friends, is the decision we are really making.
In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
15 kids in New York City are in the hospital tonight with a rare, life-threatening condition that could be linked to COVID-19. The children have developed what's known as Kawasaki disease. The illness causes blood vessels to become inflamed, possibly leading to death. Symptoms include red eyes, rashes, swollen neck glands, and high temperatures. Doctors are saying early diagnosis and treatment are critical. President Trump won't be visiting the Big Apple anytime soon. Although he's in the election battleground state of Arizona today, he's not coming back to his hometown until, as he puts it, things calm down a little bit. He said he's devastated by what the pandemic has done, especially in hard-hit Queens, where he was raised. Here are some more headlines. Carnival Cruise Line is looking to hit the high seas again starting August 1st. A new survey is showing that working from home makes you more productive. No commute is the biggest reason why. Starbucks is reopening about 85% of its U.S. stores by the end of the week, but dine-in will remain suspended. A new biography of Benedict XVI is rolling off the presses with some tough words inside. The retired pontiff worked with one of the people who knows him best, Peter Seewald. The book is already out in Germany and will be released in English this fall. Using examples of same-sex marriage, abortion, and more, Benedict says modern society is in the middle of formulating an anti-Christian creed. And if one opposes it, one is being punished by society with excommunication. There's a lot more news headed your way. They may not be in the classroom right now, but they're working harder than ever. Why we're recognizing teachers today. Plus, why these drivers are leaning on their horns, a traffic jam in Brooklyn for a good reason. And where there's a need, there's a night. How the Knights of Columbus are leaving no neighbor behind during the pandemic.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
The pandemic has changed everyday life, and school is where some of the biggest impacts are taking place. Catholic educators in the Diocese of Brooklyn are doing their utmost in these days of distance learning to teach students with special needs. On this Teacher Appreciation Day, Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story of the successes that are being achieved.
When I hear the word bike, I hear a long I.
This year, for teachers across the country, the day dedicated to their hard work and passion is bittersweet.
You don't get the homemade cards and the sweet little trinkets they bring in for you, and just get to have that bonding time in person.
Shannon Wallace is a first-grade teacher at St. Andrew AVELLINO Catholic Academy in Flushing. Early on into digital learning, Shannon realized she had to switch things up.
We still meet as a whole group like we were doing in the beginning, but now what I actually do is meet with small groups.
This allowed Shannon to celebrate the small victories.
Yes. Awesome.
And to see how involved parents are getting in their kids' educations.
They're so dedicated to their child's education, but that they get to see me as their teacher.
Especially for the students in her class who have individualized education programs or IEPs. One of them is Michael.
There's a virus going on and no one could be at school.
Michael's mom, Elizabeth DIESO, has seen how much it takes to successfully learn online.
I've talked to other parents and they are now understanding what their kids' struggles are.
Elizabeth is also a teacher at Michael's school.
Just make a guess before we even read it.
She's realized how much patience she has for her class and how her kids' teachers show them that same consideration and understanding.
Kids have been saying oh, I miss my teacher. I'm getting choked up. Because my teacher has more patience for me.
Being home with Michael, Elizabeth has seen his IEP in play. She's even been able to use some of his speech therapy techniques.
Mike, what is that animal?
A snake.
For both Shannon and Elizabeth, teaching is their calling, whether they're in a classroom or not. It's strengthened their faith in God and in Catholic education.
Or let's take a minute and pray together and tell them that I'm thinking of them and God is thinking of them.
It's important to have hope. Yeah. And without hope, we would be lost.
So for all teachers who put their hearts, souls, and faith into what they do, thank you.
Good job today.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
A rousing salute of support for Brooklyn's Mercy Home. The Red Hook Institution operates a range of programs with the goal of empowering children, women, and men with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Mercy Home hosted the car parade to remember the loss of two friends at one of their residences and for staff who've tested positive for COVID-19. The Knights of Columbus have always had a reputation for helping when people are in need, and the organization has really stepped up during the COVID-19 crisis. Joining us now to let us know what they've been up to is the Knights Vice President of Planning, Andrew Walther. And Andrew, during this pandemic, Supreme Knight Carl Anderson issued a challenge to the Knights. What are the 5 kinds of activities Knights are encouraged to do?
Well, we've encouraged Knights through the Supreme Knight and our Leave No Neighbor Behind program to donate blood, to help support food banks, and to make sure that they're looking after those in their neighborhood, making sure that they have food and essentials, members of their parish, and other Knights of Columbus. And so that has taken on many forms at the local level, depending on the particular needs of the local level. But we've seen a great outpouring of support, both in terms of the blood drives and the food-related programs. And we've seen our membership really step up to help in a serious way here.
Yeah, one thing around here that's been a huge help to people is food drives. Talk about what you've been doing here in New York and beyond.
Well, just recently in Brooklyn, one of the parishes there, we had a food drive. We were working with helping to feed people that were in need. This is happening all over the country, certainly, as I mentioned, in Brooklyn, but also from coast to coast in Los Angeles and cities all in between. In addition, we've also raised a lot of money and put money into food banks around the country. So we're not just providing volunteer support for food banks and food programs like you're seeing in Brooklyn. We're also providing financial support for food banks, and that certainly happened in New York. It's happened in Connecticut. It's happened all over the country, Texas, California, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, explain how the Knights are also helping dioceses get through the crisis financially.
Well, we announced a $100 million low-interest line of credit for dioceses that were facing financial headwinds as a result of the COVID pandemic. And dioceses are eligible to apply for up to $1 million. And upon the typical, underwriting and so on that goes into that, they're able to then potentially access that money in a way that can help them get through these kinds of financial issues that we're seeing with a decrease in donations, with increased expenses in other areas, et cetera. So this was something that we wanted to do to help dioceses and their parishes to weather this storm. And we're very happy to be able to do this. And it really fits in well with something we've done going back more than a century. We've had a church loan program that's provided competitively priced loan products to churches and parishes around the country to help them get through various issues that they encounter and to make sure that they can move ahead with things that they need to do. So this was a very important piece of what we were doing as well, trying to help the church financially and also trying to help our neighbors in need in a very specific way with food, with blood, with these tangible means of support.
All right, Knights of Columbus Vice President of Planning, Andrew Walther, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
The shutdown of New York City's subway system starts tonight. At 1 a.m., all trains will be halted and stations closed until 5 the next morning. The point is to disinfect the cars and move homeless people off the trains. The shutdown continues every day until further notice. More people are looking to buy guns during the pandemic. The FBI says background checks on firearms continue to make the record books in the U.S. April was the 4th highest month since it started keeping track back in 1998. More than 3 million background checks were conducted. Beekeepers are reacting tonight to a new threat to the U.S., the Asian giant hornet, also known as the murder hornet. And while scientists say we shouldn't fear this insect, beekeepers are worried about their hives.
I've been a beekeeper 50 years and I've been here 43.
Oliver Frank makes a living tending to 150 private beehives in California and is all too familiar with the damage disease and pesticides have played on these pollinators.
The average bee loss every winter is 40% of the hives in the United States. I was affected by them in the mid-90s. Almost all of my bees died, and for several years in a row.
But now there's another threat spotted in Washington state, the world's largest hornet, hailing from Asia, dubbed the murder hornet for its massive 2-inch size and a sting that kills around 50 people a year in Japan. The insect's appetite for the honeybee could also have other dire consequences.
Right, there's both the increased cost to beekeepers, the increased cost of food production.
Invasive species aren't new to California, and scientists say the term murder hornet can be detrimental and incite fear.
Well, actually, if you look at the numbers, probably more are killed by the honeybee because they're more common. And the reason people are die from them because they're allergic to them.
Instead of fear, experts say the Hornets' dubious nickname should serve to bring awareness and the need for more education.
We should be looking at this as a wake-up call, and we need a system to monitor them and cut it off before it establishes. And just like we weren't prepared for COVID, we were not prepared for a lot of potential invasive threats, and we should be in the insect world.
Scientists don't know how the hornets ended up in the U.S., but sometimes they're transported in international cargo. Still to come on Currents News, baseball's back, but it looks a little different. We'll tell you where the players took the field. Also ahead, a mariachi band puts on a surprise concert. We'll show you who they're honoring. The players took the field as America's favorite pastime was played in South Korea. Tuesday was opening day in the Asian country. It's one of the first leagues to play baseball during the coronavirus pandemic. There was no one in the stands. Everyone wore masks and had their temperatures taken. Meanwhile, here in the States, Major League Baseball is looking at 3 possible scenarios to bring baseball back without fans. Teams could play in their own cities against teams in the same region, or they would all play in Arizona, or they would only play in 3 states. Finally tonight, from the baseball field to those working the fields during the pandemic, some of these essential workers spending long hours on a farm in California got a surprise serenade. Regina Ureta shows us.
With music and food. A local mariachi band shows their appreciation for field workers at a cornfield in the North Shore. Juan Luis and his co-workers are doing the essential work of harvesting food in the middle of a pandemic.
I can't stop working. I need to pay for rent, my bills, and help my family.
Juan Luis is from Mexico and has worked in the fields for more than 5 years. He says a mariachi performance was the first time he felt appreciated for the long hours they put in.
I can only be proud of myself and the work I have. I love working the fields, but it's nice to feel appreciated too.
The greatest number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the Coachella Valley are concentrated in the East Valley, where people are essential workers and can't stay home to quarantine. Plus, many people are undocumented and lack access to affordable health care or personal protective equipment.
The state and the federal government, when they defined who essential workers were during this COVID crisis, we understood that it was important to try to keep our essential workers safe.
The band decided to perform for workers during the morning shift.
To come out here and play for the field workers. And like I said, thanks to our field workers, we had vegetables and food. If it wasn't for them working during COVID-19, it would have been, it's a hard situation.
A surprise visit.
They should come back tomorrow morning.
Again, that was Regina Ureta reporting. There are between 2 to 3 million agricultural workers in the U.S. And according to the U.S. Department of Labor's National Agricultural Workers Survey, nearly half are undocumented immigrants. And that is Currents News. Before we go, here's how to get in touch with the New York Bar Association at nysba.org. They're providing free help to those who've had their unemployment claims denied. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time. Good night.